All right. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's SUNY Online webinar. It's my pleasure to have you here and to introduce my colleague, Allene Slating. Allene is the Senior Instructional Designer with the SUNY Online teaching team. And she comes to SUNY Online from SUNY Delhi, as you might have caught in the comments, where she held various roles supporting faculty and students on campus and online. She has last served as their instructional designer and DLE admin. So, Allene, thank you for sharing this terrific and useful tool with us today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Erin. And hi, everyone. Oh, what a great group we have here today. Like Erin introduced, I am Allene Slating, Senior Instructional Designer at SUNY Online. I support faculty, staff, and campuses with online learning. I also adjunct at SUNY Delhi, and I teach a hybrid education course. I'm happy to be here with you all. We are talking about an accessible course content checklist that I created. Now, I have to add the disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, and I am always learning about accessibility. So if, yes, I will be presenting a resource, but I also welcome any ideas, any tips. We have a wealth of knowledge in this room, and, we're just here to support each other. So hopefully this optional resource will help you as you modify, remediate, create accessible course content in preparation for the updated Title II requirements come April. So today, I will describe accessibility in the context of learning with digital materials and technologies. I will introduce the optional accessible course content checklist. I will demonstrate how it can be applied to a course or adapted to meet specific campus needs. And I will highlight important points and tips for creating accessible digital content. So when we're talking about accessibility in this context, we're referring to providing instructional content and technologies that can be perceived and engaged with by everyone, regardless of what methods they use to interact with it. Now, from a technical perspective, when something is accessible, it is properly formatted to be used with or without assistive technologies, meaning anybody can access the information within it. And we do this in general because we want to make our content accessible to support all of our students, particularly those with disabilities, of course, and to provide an equitable learning experience for everyone. However, in the upcoming months, we are doing it to ensure our content is accessible in proactive preparation for ADA Title II updates that take effect in April, when we will need to have all of our digital content and tools be accessible from the course start, not retroactively by request, as has been in the past. The level by which we need to meet is the WCAG standard Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 level AA, and that is the minimum level for digital content and tools to be accessible. There is level 2.2 AA, which will likely become the baseline in the future, so certainly strive for it, but 2.1 will be the requirement in April. Hopefully this checklist can help with that effort. So this is just a preview and I'll dive into a demo shortly. However, you can view or download a copy from our website, and I'll throw this in the chat for you, although Erin might be quick too. So on this page, this is one of our SUNY online teaching pages. There's some general information, but if you scroll down to the bottom, here is a preview of the checklist. You can simply view it here, or you can download by clicking this button to download, and it will be an Excel file. So the checklist is merely a guide. It's to kind of help track the actions that need to be done and to help ensure digital course materials are structured to be accessible as we need them to be. The focus of the checklist is on the formatting of your content to align with those WCAG standards or best practices. So it's not looking at the subject matter or information. This is about technical formatting not pedagogical perspective, or course design in terms of the more detailed actions. It is Oscar inspired though, which is our course quality review rubric that has best practices for course design. So feel free to check that one out. And like I've mentioned, it is an optional resource. This is intended to support accessibility and help you with workflow and tracking. But in terms of uses, faculty can use it for their own courses. Instructional designers can use it for any of the courses that they support. And it can be used as part of the design phase of building a course, so referring to it as you are creating new course content. You could also use it as part of the review process. So you could use it in a formal review, course review, or self-review to track the accessibility status of certain objects. And it is free to customize and modify. So it is openly licensed to adapt and share alike. Currently, it has a lot of SUNY specific resources. However, you can create a campus specific version, and I'll show you an example of that. So I just want to double check that I'm not missing any. I think we're all just introducing. Okay, just want to check for any questions, and shall we jump into an example?
No questions so far.
Thanks, Erin. So I downloaded a copy of the checklist. I used it to review my education class, and here's what we got. So this is the general layout of the checklist, and at the top, there is frozen rows. These are frozen rows. They are basically a summary of your course and of the actions beneath it. At the top, we have our course name, the URL in the LMS. We have percentage complete, and this is calculated from the items beneath it, which are actually drop-down menus that you would select. And so it calculates from that. And then we have compiled recommendations or comments, which takes this text in this column and just compiles it all together. In our columns down beneath our frozen section, we have more detailed things. Now, I want to start off by saying this is structured to start from simple to more complex. So when we look at our area, we have course overall, using a campus syllabus template, if you have LMS, if you have an accessibility checker available in your LMS, such as Ally, using something like that. And then it goes by object type. So then we have HTML text, images, videos, media, tables, PowerPoint, documents, Word, PDF, math and science objects, and then technology overall. So it kind of works up to be more complex. That's in our area section. Next, we have accessible content or action for that particular area. So this could be an action, a recommendation, a best practice, or a WCAG standard. So for example, if we're looking at HTML text, we want to make sure that all of our heading levels we have heading styles and they're used in a logical order. Now, some things might seem repetitive, such as having images needing to have alt text. If you're doing that, say, in like an HTML page in your LMS, and you might see it again down in the images. It's just because that also needs to be checked in that same space. And for recommendations, these might be campus specific based upon available tools, resources, and processes. So you might have a campus template or not. You might have different tools that are available specific to your campus that others may not. So feel free to modify that to your needs. In the complete column, this indicates completion status. And this is something that either you as the faculty or instructional designer reviewing a course would indicate its status. So let's take a look. In my course, I used the campus syllabus template. Yep. Now, if I didn't, or if I did something else, such as my heading levels, I only partially met that because I need to recheck the order in a couple modules, then I would just select from the dropdown and say, yes, partially met. If you have something that isn't met, you can select no. It will turn red and also drop your score up at the top. If something is not applicable, you can simply click NA and it will not affect the score. All of these add up to 100%, but from 0 to 85%, it will be orange. Let's see if I can get it. Let's see if I can get it done. Let's do a couple here. Almost. Oh, one more. We want to strive for 85? Let's do one more. Okay. So from 0 to 85, it will be orange. 85 and above, it will be green. FYI, if you decide to make changes to this, let's say you wanted to add a row, know that you will have to adjust the code in here. Full disclosure, it started to get really complicated and I had to ask AI. But the problem was that I didn't want the headers to be empty and influence this number. So just know that you don't want to count like the blank title headers, object headers. Carol, I see you have a question. Oh, I'm so glad, Kelly, that you can see it. You might want to take a look at your Zoom toolbar, and there's usually two tabs, one that says meeting and one that says like screen. If you toggle between those, yep, like Marie's talking about. I used to do like, tech stuff. I can never stop really getting out of that. So that's going to be for our complete column. Just know that you might have to adjust the code up here if you change any rows. In the column next to that, we have recommendations or comments. This could be notes, reminders, recommendations, or explanations. So for instance, for this one where for heading levels, I'm giving myself a reminder that to recheck the heading levels in particular spaces. This same string of text compiles up at the top. So let's just say if I add test, it adds it down here. I'm going to rewrap this. Nope, let's just pull it down. Oops, it's up here. So see how it just kind of blends it together? It's just taking that text and shoving it in there. So be sure to add a period and a space. Otherwise, it'll just become one long big sentence of anything that you have in your recommendations or comments. But this is a quick space where you can reference everything that is in that column. And lastly, in our related information and resources, these are currently all SUNY relevant resources, including DeQ, Microsoft, WCAG, Brightspace, and Ally. However, change these as suits your campus's needs or anything that you have found particularly useful. So I do see we have a couple comments in the chat. I understood that 85 is not enough and we need to be closer to 99 for accessibility. Yeah, I mean, generally, sure, as accessible as possible. That would be ideal. The strive for 85 came from Ally, where that's the tool that we have available in many of our campuses. And it became like, here's what you should shoot for at the bare minimum. 99% is definitely better. However, at least into the green of 85. And your campus might have other requirements, so please, whatever your campus requires, obviously go with that. And Nancy, yeah, like your suggestion, sure, you can modify these rows and requirements to what you think is best or what your campus requires. And Victoria, your question about access for the Ally report, there's kind of two. So I don't want to dive too much away from this, but you might want to check in with your campus LMS admin. You should have access to a course report, and the area by which you access that is probably going to vary. There's also like a separate institutional report that probably is not going to be useful for you. However, that course report is what is going to have that 85. Otherwise, you'll see these little gas gauges next to individual items, and I would say get those to be as 100% as possible. There's also a question, does SUNY have resources including a checklist for how to make PDFs accessible, especially scanned readings, giving emphasis on OER for cost accessibility? I might be able to look at one thing. I'm not sure if it has exactly what you're looking for, but I would also check in with your library. Your library might have something. And if somebody knows of something that exists that could answer Natalie's question, by all means, feel free to add it in. And Miriam, provide access to this document. I will add the link to the, oh, thank you. Thanks, Jamie. This particular document, this one is my demo for my education class. So it's going to have, you can have the blank version. All right. So let's talk about some common actions. So the checklist is to help kind of track the things that you want to take a look at, the things that you might need. And let me also just point out one thing that I think is important. I'll go through some of these individual objects, but I also want to point out that particularly if you are with SUNY, your campus might have a SUNY EIT policy. So for any technology, please refer to your campus policies and practices for electronic information technology and what steps you need to do to make sure that those things are accessible. But when we are looking at individual things, here are some common actions that you'll have to do. Heading styles. Heading styles are a formatting action to add structure and help with navigation. That will be available in Word documents, in PowerPoints, in HTML text. And what that will look like, let's jump over to Word. So in Word, this is just example content. You can either type out your information or select your style, but we want our headings, which are located up here in Word, to be in logical order starting from level 1 going forward. So at the tippy top, we'll have our heading 1, and then working our way down, we will have heading level 2. And you can simply type, whatever, information that you need to type. We're going to leave this at heading level 2. And let's say I didn't actually like how this looked. I can change it, but still keep the heading structure. So, I can make it do something really ridiculous. Oh, that's so painful and inaccessible. So let me do something else. Whatever it is. But it still keeps heading level 2. And then I can change the font. That's fine. We still have our heading level 2. So if a student came in with a screen reader, it would make sense that they would say heading level 1, this is, the title, and then it breaks it down into kind of a more logical order. You can do this same thing in Brightspace your LMS and HTML boxes. So here I am in a Brightspace practice course, but I have the same content. So if I'm going to edit the HTML for this web page, so here I would come in, I can do a similar thing. I can either type out my text or I can highlight it and then apply the formatting, which in Brightspace is going to be over here in our toolbar and then heading level 1. Then I can center it again. I can change the size. I still get heading level 1 from that. And then so forth with heading level 2. And you want it to be in logical order, so don't start with heading level 2 and then end with 1. Go from 1, almost like an outline to be smaller. Okay. So I'm just going to pause for a moment. I think there's been some conversation in the chat. Is there any questions or anything that I can review for heading styles at the moment? Some conversation about not giving a target score because they're easy to manipulate. I think I like, well, yeah, there's always quirks with technology, that's for sure. I'm going backwards. Is this new accessibility law going to require that everyone use an LMS, including those? No, not the law. The law is not requiring you to use an LMS. It's requiring anything that is digital to be accessible. Someone correct me, like if you were to email it, I think that would also qualify, right? Yeah. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, thanks for adding. Oh, yeah, thanks, Karen, for adding emails. Thanks, yeah. Separate session. There's a little tool in your Microsoft Outlook that might be helpful for checking accessibility. And is there a better Brightspace template to use for documents than others? If you are a SUNY, no, because it would just be, if you use Brightspace, we have Oscar templates. Aaron, I'm not sure where it is. If someone can find them quickly. We have some templates.
I'll look for them.
Thanks, Aaron. We have some templates available that might be helpful. They're actually whole course templates. So you might find some parts are more useful than others, but within there are some HTML for pages like these. There are some templates. Okay, I see there are some additional questions, but let me continue with a couple of the common actions, and then I can return back to some of things that might be a little bit more specific. So after heading styles, we also have alternative text. So alternative text describes what an image looks like or the information that it adds. So think of it this way. If, we're having a conversation right now and I have this on my screen, but you're not looking at my screen because whatever, either you can't or temporarily or permanently, I might say, this is an example of the accessible course content checklist and a screenshot of one that I used for my course. So I'm just visually describing what this image is. And if we have students that are using a screen reader, that screen reader is going to dictate the information that we provide it. This is an Excel document and a checklist for helping with accessibility, or a screenshot of an example filled out, something like that. So we want to, for any images that we include, if it conveys information, we need to say what that is. Or we can also mark it decorative if it doesn't convey any information. So for example, let's take a look at this example here. So I have an image. I have inserted the image. To add alt text, I right click and do view alt text. I think you can do it at the top too. Now, this has some AI generated information. Cool. Well, just review it. So it says a person holding a service dog vest. Kind of close. Not really though. So if you use AI to generate alternative text, just make sure that it clearly describes what the image is and also in terms of the context. So a correct version of that might be a close-up of a golden retriever in a red service dog vest with service dog label. More descriptive. Now, if this were decorative, so I can right-click this and I can simply say mark as decorative, and the screen reader, it'll skip right over it. It'll have null and not say anything. If I were to say approve alt text, it would lock that in, and it would also include AI-generated content may be incorrect. So be sure to review it, edit, and take that out. Now, I could also describe this visually. A close-up of a golden colored dog wearing a service vest with a hand holding the handle, simply describing what the contents is. But you also want to think about what your students or somebody on the receiving end needs to know and the context. So if this were a design course, you might word this a little bit differently. What do they need to know about this image? It is a bright red service vest for a dog with reflective text, clear language, and a handle for its user. So in this case, we're not just describing this image, we're describing its contents and what might be helpful for somebody given the use that we're doing it for. And how you might do the same thing in Brightspace is in your HTML page. You would add it in. You can right click or when you add it in, you'll also be prompted with this. You could say the image is descriptive or add your alternative text in here. Just while I'm here, there is an accessibility checker in the HTML boxes of Brightspace. If you click this, it will go through and let's see if it brings it up. So here it's giving me an error that I need to add it. So I would be able to mark it decorative here or provide the alternative text as well. Okay. Questions on alternative text? Oh,
There are a
go ahead.
couple. Yeah.
Okay. So I see
So I
one.
can, yeah. Do you see the one about tests?
If an image is part of a test question where the instructor doesn't want to give a detailed explanation as it will give away the question answer, how would they alt text it? So I think it would depend on your image, but I would say, do you have an example? Like, are we talking about an anatomy class, or can you like visually describe what it looks like without giving additional context? And then Krista adds the alt text generator. That was going to be my next suggestion, is you could use AI to generate alt text, like several, and then choose or modify the one that works best for you. I think the goal, well, depending on your situation, but I think the goal would be to describe what it looks like without giving the answer away, while still providing information to help them determine that. I hope that helped. But I would also consult with your accessibility coordinator or whoever's in that role on your campus, who might be able to add more information. A question about alt text for emojis. For emojis, this is a good one. I think, oh, it goes so quickly. The emojis are accessible, Maureen adds, and the emails through Brightspace, I think, let's say you're doing an announcement, I would add heading structures in the announcements. Images don't come over in Brightspace email, so which is a different problem. But I would try to make everything as accessible as possible. If you're emailing though, and it's just text, add heading structures where need be. Oh, for example, formatting with the list, use, whatever tools you have available to format things as they should so that if a screen reader does need to be used, it makes sense for them. Stacy adds identify the blood cell in the image. I do a lot of questions with images. Sorry, I also put talking about emojis, I put the reactions, the automatic reactions on my Zoom account, and now it just does it willy-nilly. So I do a lot of questions with images for lab procedures, imaging courses. Yeah, I think you would have to do as best you can, but I also want to I think in general, sharing how people are doing things is helpful. I don't want anybody to try and reinvent the wheel. And also, I think I kind of talk about this in a little bit, but we should put pressure on our publishers. If we're getting content from a publisher or another source, they should be providing accessible content as well. Carol adds a thought for the images. Can you describe what you see in the image that guides you to the correct choice? Right. Are there any other questions for alt text before I move on? Gabby adds limiting emoji use. Okay. So we have our alternative text, we have our heading styles, and we also need to have meaningful links. So meaningful links are going to be hyperlinked text. So instead of putting the whole URL, instead of this whole URL up at the top, we're just going to select our text and hyperlink that. So therefore, well, first of all, it's a lot cleaner. It's also more informative than the whole big long URL. And I just want to say this is one that helps everybody, but it helps those that use screen readers in particular, because if you just put in the big long URL, screen reader is just going to read the big long URL. But if you hyperlink text, then it will just read, it'll say, whatever your text is, links to the website. So how you might do that, if we take a look over at our Word document, we have any kind of text. So let's just say SUNY website or whatever it is. You would highlight it. You can certainly utilize the options in the toolbar or right click and do link. The keyboard command that I really like is just Control K. And I've found this to be fairly correct me if anybody has I found it to be fairly universal across different tools. So I just do Control K to open up the link menu. You would paste in or type in your website, suny.edu, click OK. And now we've got our hyperlinked text. So now it's meaningful. We know where it's going. It's going to be easier for everyone. How you do that in Brightspace, very similar. We have our HTML text box, and we can say, SUNY, excuse me, SUNY website, highlight. We also have our options here. But if we do OK, a tip for Brightspace, and I hope they're listening. Adding this in, and if you paste, it will duplicate the HTML, the HTTP. So get that out if you have just simply copied, because you'll have two HTTPS, and the link won't work. So be careful, get that out of there. Thanks, Jess. Yeah. And then, yeah, so then you would add in HTTPS, SUNY.edu. Oh, but And then that will give you your hyperlinked text. One last tip in terms of meaningful links. So this all works digitally. If you're doing something that's like a printout or a poster, if the URL is simple enough, maybe that works. But a QR code might be more helpful. So a QR code is going to be like a square barcode. Let me see. Let me do this one. So this is available in Chrome, and I've used this. There's other ways to create a QR code, but I find this one is probably the easiest. So I'm on my website. I right click and I choose create QR code for this page. Like so. I could download this, but I'm just going to copy for now. Head over to my demo page, wherever I wanted it. Maybe this becomes a poster. Paste, and then that becomes my QR code. Now, if you have a digital copy of this, this is an image. So you would say you have to add alt text for that. QR code to SUNY website, something like that, whatever it is. But this way, anybody can just take their phone and be able to access it without needing to type it all out. All right, any questions on meaningful links for now? Oops. So we also have PDFs, and I know there was a question earlier. I think everyone finds PDFs a little tricky, but in general, they will need to have headings. So the heading styles and the tags for the structure to say like, yes, this is the heading level 1, working the way down. The text needs to be, you should be able to highlight it. It should be optimal character recognition, OCR'd, so that it is readable by screen readers. And if we have a scanned document, it's not going to work. I'll show you an example. But to be able to, if you just simply highlight yours, let me pull one up. So here's a scanned example. So taking it from a book, putting it on the photocopier, sending it to my email. This is just an image in terms of technical formatting. This is just an image. A screen reader won't be able to do anything with this. Now, this is an untagged PDF, so it's not ideal. However, because I can highlight the text, it is a little bit better than the scanned photocopy because that's just an image. So if you have a document that's your own and you own it, you're the creator, start with an accessible Word version. Save it as a PDF, and it should be the default to be tagged. So here we are, we're back into Word. Let's say this was all good. Let's say I've used the review to check my accessibility, which is an option here. And now I'm ready to save. If I save this as a PDF, well, that's interesting. That's fine. This is new. I didn't know that this was an option here. It should save it as a tagged PDF. The version that you have might have a specific window where you can make sure that it's checked, but it should be checked by default. That's going to be the easiest. If you are getting it from the library, getting an article from a publisher, or scanning something from a textbook, you'll have to find and provide an accessible copy. And what that might look like, first of all, reach out to your fellow librarians. They are so helpful. What you can do is, if it's available in your library, You could use like the DOI link or even the link to the library, your campus library, where it lives in the campus library. You could, so this is the same document, and then I can dig a little bit deeper to get to the accessible version. Oh, it's going to make me sign in. All right, I'm not going to do all that right now. So that's one way. The other way would be to reformat the article by recreating it in Word to be accessible, but adhere to fair use rules by giving original credit to the creator and only using this version for teaching purposes. You're essentially just creating an alternative format so that students are able to access it if they need. And just as a reminder about alternative formats, while we're here, the alternative formats are a tool, a feature of Ally. So you might not have this if you don't have Ally. Alternative formats will let you, students, anybody that has access to the object, download the object, the file, in a different format. It doesn't make it any more accessible. It just puts it into a different format. So if this is a PDF, I could download this as something else. For this particular object, it's a scanned image, so it might not work. But just as an FYI, that's what this is, and it might be helpful for some of your students. Anything about PDFs for the moment? And forgive me for not being able to catch up on all of the chat. I love the good conversation. Keep it going. Share resources. Share, insights. In terms of PDF, what about music? Sheet music? This question has come up before if you're talking about sheet music. Oh, so quick. How would we recreate that in a more accessible format since it is not written text exactly? I don't know the tools that are available, but that would be my go-to. And I think music is a particularly tricky one because we're essentially talking about a different language, not with the alphabet. So if anybody has anything that they could add to Lauren's question, I also welcome it.
There was also an earlier question, Allene, on math,
Oh.
right? Writing handwritten notes and examples for math courses that are handwritten. So as instructor might scan that in to their Brightspace course, and then it's an image, right? And so how to make that accessible. That's another tricky area too, along with music that we get asked about music and we get asked about math quite frequently.
Right. So on the one hand, depending on the context, you could say, you could describe it with alternative text. On the other hand, I'd be very curious what tools are available, particularly say like an app to be able to scan handwriting. I feel like this exists, but I don't know specifically. If anybody is aware of this, please feel free to share it.
Yeah, I'm seeing some people suggesting math picks, which also works for handwriting. And so thank you, Carrie. Music publishers reaching out to them. And then, John, you mentioned this and someone else did too. There is an EIT group at SUNY working on compliance for things like that. I'm not sure where they are either, but that should be something that we would be sharing at some point here. We do have some subcommittees on the EIT task groups that are working on various tools and topics.
Yeah. And I'll remind everyone that, this is a journey. So our practices might evolve. We might start with one thing and see where we can improve. And that's a big part of this, is working towards improvement. Okay, so I've got just a couple more things and then some general tips. and then we can save time, or if there's time, we can have more questions, but I'm certainly happy to talk more if anyone would like. So another common action is we have our video captions or live subtitles, which we want to enable to help all viewers. So captions, just what is being said in a textual form. When you are creating, if you are creating your own video, I recommend writing out a script for when you record, and then that can easily turn into a transcript. You could also create your video, upload it to YouTube, which has automatic captions. Be sure to get in there to make sure that it's correct. But the other thing that I just recently discovered, but I don't do too much in-person. I don't do too much in-person presentations, but I did discover from someone else the automatic subtitles in PowerPoint. And what that looks like, and I'll put this in the chat for anybody who might be interested. I feel like they didn't do a good, it needs more images. But what I found is you can, when you do your, I'll zoom in some here. You've got your presentation, and then this is the desktop version, I believe. Maybe not. You go to slideshow, and then you can activate subtitles, and then where you want them. Then you can present a QR code when you are presenting. So if you click live presentation, the QR code will display. And then viewers can take their phone and use the QR code and then see the subtitles and your presentation, like right there. I think that's cool. So that might be handy for you. The other thing in Brightspace that you might find useful is Video Note. And there are captions in Video Note. You can add in your video note by doing insert stuff, add video note, or media library if you've already created it. You would add in your video. It's going to be mad at me because I have my video on. So let's head back. And when you add in your video, it'll look something like this. And there will be an option to enable automatically generate captions, but you have to go in there to select it. It won't automatically do it. But once you've enabled that, then we have our captions, and then we're covered there. Okay, so the last common action will be external tools will also need to be accessible. So we mentioned the EIT work group, and if your campus has an EIT policy for integrating technology into your course or into the LMS, you'll want it to be accessible. And one of the things to ask for, well, you could certainly test, but you'll want to ask for either a VPAT or an ACR, which is the Accessibility Conformance Report. And these are both documents that describe how well a particular tool or product meets accessibility standards. Now, the VPAT is voluntary product accessibility template. So not all of them may have it or be available readily on the website. You might have to ask for it. But just using Kahoot as an example, does Kahoot meet accessibility standards? And they go on to say, here's how it meets, and here is our conformance report. You'll have to dig in for your particular tool. Here is an evaluator that might be helpful, because these VPATs, not all of us are experts, so it might be a little confusing. So this VPAT evaluator might be helpful, or it might be an opportunity to utilize AI if the situation makes sense for it. But again, check with your own campus policies and procedures in terms of integrating other tools. All right. So here are my top 5 tips in terms of working with a checklist in terms of remediating, revising, making changes. I would say use the checklist as a guide and tracker. My course was pretty accessible, but there's room for improvement. So the notes help me to remember what to revise or what I need to do for new content. Also, start with the easiest or highest priority. So your priority items are going to be the most important. So maybe that's your content for the first unit or the first couple of weeks. Or maybe, working on the easiest things just helps to get them out of the way. You could also chunk by module or object type. That might be helpful. And also set yourself deadlines, by X time, I'm going to get unit 1 done, or whatever it is, all the HTML pages. Use available checkers and your own review. So anytime there's an accessibility checker available, it's an opportunity to confirm or check again after changes. And so you'll use this to check if anything's flagged, but also you want to still make sure to review it to yourself to ensure it's complete and the suggestions make sense. And this is particularly important if you're converting something. So let's say you start with a PowerPoint checker, it says it's good, you save it as a PDF, you upload it into your course, and then Ally says something different. Well, then you have to give it another review or utilize Adobe if you have access to that to confirm if there's something else that it might be flagging. Like I showed, Microsoft has checkers and available in all its suite of tools. And of course, if you're using AI for anything, just review it to make sure that it makes sense and reflects the content. Use built-in tool functionality. So assuming that the tool is already accessible, and I'll give an example of this, particularly, let's, say with rubrics. So tables, especially in Excel, it took me a really long time to make this accessible because I kept having to do certain things to make sure that it was accessible. So tables can be tricky, and adding them as an attachment or pasting within the feedback section might create hurdles for access for some. So you can certainly still provide an accessible PDF or Word document rubric as like a information or a preview, but for grading, I would recommend utilizing the built-in tools in your LMS. It's fewer clicks, it's better formatted for accessibility, and it saves you time with grading. Here is a video for the Brightspace rubrics. And my last tip is to use or create accessible templates. This helps ensure whatever it is that you're creating is accessible. It saves time, the structure's already there, you're just reformatting it. And it also helps to maintain some consistency. So that creates less cognitive load for our students and they become more familiar with the structure. You could do this in an assignment. So if you create your assignment template, you can structure out your heading styles. You want your title, your date, intro. If you're utilizing, you could incorporate your SLOs and utilize the list formatter. And any additional information. And also, we have our meaningful links again, but just a quick little trick that I find super helpful. This one is good on Brightspace. We have the insert quick link. So if you say wanted to link to a rubric within the course, you can utilize quick link, and that will link within the course itself to the object, not based upon URL. So the benefit of that is that you have your course for whatever semester, spring semester, and then you transfer it over, you copy it over for the fall. Those links and objects will remain connected and you don't have to go back and change all of the URLs again. So that one might be helpful for you. And for Microsoft, there are accessible templates. And I utilized one for my slides because my hybrid class, we do have an in-person lecture. So I utilized it for my slides and I just modified it for my purposes. I made an accessible first uh, presentation, and then I duplicated it and modified it slightly each week. And then I turned that into an accessible PDF. So then the format is familiar, it's structured, and honestly, it kind of helped me a little bit because then I didn't have to think so much about creating something entirely new. I just kind of worked off the previous one. Okay, so here are some additional resources. We have the checklist as an optional resource, Oscar to help with course design, although it does incorporate some accessibility standards too, or practices. The templates that I just showed you, the Arizona State alt text generator, which I think somebody added in there as well, SUNY EIT accessibility resources, ADA Title II, fact sheet, and your campus support teams and IDs are valuable resources. They are there to help, and this whole thing is a collective effort. So reach out to them. They might be able to provide available resources or strategies that could help. So I want to thank you all for joining. I will stay, and I know we just have a couple minutes, so I want to open it up for questions. But if you do have to run, thank you. We're chipping away at this. We're just a little bit at a time, but hopefully this checklist can help. So are there questions either in the chat or if anybody wants to come off mute? Oh, thank you, everyone. I'm having to catch up. I have like 26 that I have to go through.
You, Allene. I don't think we missed questions, but if we did, please, by all means, let us know in the chat or come off mute. And if you've thought of something else, please feel free to share that as well. There are a lot of resources in here. If you click on the three little dots in the chat window, you can save the chat and download it. A lot of great things that were shared here. I will put all of the links that were shared in the chat along with Allene's slides in the description of the recording. So one-stop shop, you can just go to YouTube and get the recording along with the slides and all of the resources.
May I ask a question, please?
Absolutely, Natalie.
Thank you so much. I don't know if the Microsoft Word templates cover this. When you start to use track changes and comments for peer review in a writing course, is if you can teach the students and yourself, me, how to change from like red, which would not be an accessible color, to a more accessible color for track changes, is that needing remediation? How are comments handled?
Interesting question. I would want to test this because in my mind, and if anybody knows, please add, it's a structural thing and the visual color is merely a signifier so that if a screen reader went through it, I wonder how it would read it. Does anybody? I would be curious to test this. Color in general, we don't want to use color to signify importance in general. I worked on a document that it was a Google document, so it wasn't Word, but in the suggested, you change it to suggested, so you kind of track things. But what I did is I kind of like put brackets as an information, like suggested, and then continued on. So as part of my comment, I'm saying that this is a suggestion. So regardless of what color it turns up for somebody, that's not the only signifier. But I would definitely reach out to your accessibility coordinator because I'd be curious what a screen reader reads. Like, how does it tell somebody that this is just a change or a suggestion? Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Good question. Any other questions or comments? We can chat. Oh, my slides. Yes. So if we're talking about Google, I don't have it up. I've used Grackle Docs Grackle Docs, Grackle Slides, and it is a extension that when you open up slides, it's like a separate, you have to download it for slides separately, for docs separately, for sheets. And then it gives you a little option on your toolbar that's like extensions and then Grackle or Launch. And so you kind of have to click into it. And that becomes an accessibility checker for Google, the Google Suite. It's fine. I kind of like Microsoft's a little bit better, but it's better than nothing. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Erin. Yeah. All right. Well, once again, I'm certainly happy to stay if anyone would like to chat. But otherwise, I wish you all a wonderful afternoon and thank you again for joining.
And I'm muted. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Allene, as well. And I saw a comment about to hear how a screen reader would work, and you can actually just Google that, and there are a lot of audio clips of screen readers so that you can hear what it would sound like. For example, if you had the full URL spelled out or something like that. So.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, and there's the Microsoft link. So I'll capture all of these links along with the slides. You're welcome, Carol. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.